What's up, everybody? Let's welcome my special guest for a third time. We got Damon Bruce, man. The Bruce, man. The guy's got a good show going on, man. How's it going, buddy?
What's going on, CG? It's always good to see you. We're sitting here on Draftmas Eve, right? We're about to be fathers handing out cigars in the delivery room. There's a new Niner about to be born, and this is a very important baby to the family because this is a rare time where you're sitting around and you're drafting right in the middle of what you hope to be your Super Bowl window, trying to keep it open as long as you can. So this is a big one. This is a really, really big 24, 48 hours for the San Francisco 49ers, and it's good to be with you again.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good just for a lot of good times, all that stuff. But yeah, dude, so the draft is coming up, and like you said, new faces to the Niners. But speaking of what's been going on, man, those Brandon Ayuk trades, man, it's ridiculous. It's just like swirling like virus or something, you know.
Well, you get a lot of different sides of information, don't you? You know, you got people looking at this from Brandon Ayuk's standpoint saying, what's most important to him, being back with the 49ers or getting the most amount of money possible? And if it's the most amount of money possible, and I don't begrudge him that at all, it feels like he is getting closer and closer to leaving. Then you hear what John Lynch says about it. And John Lynch is, telling you he envisions Brandon being a career 49er. And remember, this is exactly what Mike Dunleavy Jr. was saying about Jordan Poole about 15 minutes before he traded him to the Washington Wizards. So you can hear what a GM is saying and then sort of, just believe that there's something else going on. I've described it like a magician, this is the hand that's distracting you, but the hand that you don't see is what's really doing the trick. And right now, John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, and anyone who hasn't watched me before is seeing me for the first time here on your channel. I love Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk's awesome. I would love Brandon Ayuk to be a career 49er. I think that the team will have trouble replacing him in the passing game and in the running game, where he's a pivotal player. He's kind of like the perfect workhorse wide receiver who's also your number one wide receiver, all things considered all the way around. And you don't walk away from a player like that when you're trying to win a Super Bowl. But if a player like that wants $30 million a year and you got your entire roster styled out with Pro Bowlers everywhere, and it's just, the number in which, he was standing in the deli line for that contract, it just came at a time where it feels like he's priced out. I do believe that the cap is a little fictitious and you can squeeze in deals. It's hard to squeeze in a $30 million contract anywhere. And the way that the 49ers play just means that wide receivers, by definition, are going to mean less to them. You saw what Amon-Ra St. Brown signed for today.
Big money.
There's a guy who's going to get 150 targets and walk away with 120 catches, right? That's kind of who he is, and that's how the Lions run their offense. The 49ers are not like that at all.
No, they run the ball more of anything else.
And they spread it around by design. They don't find a favorite player and just work them to death. It's not what they do. So, it sucks. It sucks. It'd be great if you could designate one or two players to keep on your roster that you drafted and developed, and they don't count towards the cap or something like that, so you can keep teams together, which would be good for fans, which would be good for football continuity. But it just looking at the price of wide receiver business and believing the tea leaves of what Brandon Ayuk really wants out of this contract, it just feels like, CG, we're closer today to Brandon Ayuk getting traded than we were this time yesterday based on that Amon-Ra St. Brown contract alone.
Yeah. It's already been set the market with Devontae Adams, but with St. Brown doing it, man, it's already pressuring Ayuk with the more money. So the Niners might have to look into other options in the draft. You're not gonna expect this rookie receiver to step in overnight and produce like Ayuk. It's gonna take some time. So, like you said, the Niners don't value too much of the wide receivers as much. Like, we are a run first team. We run by design. They get the ball every now and then. They do the selfless work. They do the blocking, and that's how they value the offense. It's more like it's a team thing, not like give me the ball type of guy.
It's more of the lunch pail wide receiver than it is the fine dining diva wide receiver.
Yeah.
Just by the way Shanahan goes about calling a game.
Yeah. And there is a couple of receivers that might fill the mold or fit just okay, but I'm not going to expect them to produce right away. But if we are going to that direction, we got this guy from South Carolina who just looks like a big body receiver. He was trained by Debo, Xavier Legette, right? That dude is a specimen. It looks like an AJ Brown.
There are some really interesting prospects. I mean, there really are. I think Xavier Legette is exactly what Shanahan looks for in a receiver and how he plays and how he's wired. I think that. I it's funny, I really thought that they might come back to Tyler Boyd here. They might look to Ronnie Bell and say, "Hey, kid, it's time to officially become an NFL player. It's time to get Danny Gray from being a rumor to an actual player." The 49ers feel a little that they're not deep at receiver at all.
Not right now.
Maybe you turn into the team that's running double tight end sets and you're looking for a tight end somewhere in this draft. Maybe I don't know. It feels like no matter what you talk about, drafting a wide receiver first round, we're kind of out of our minds because we know what the Niners do. They draft defensive linemen in the first round.
They do.
And before they draft a defensive lineman in this first round, a position that I think that they did an awful lot to sort of talk about and address during free agency, I think it's time to look all O-line.
Yeah.
I really do. You can't preach the importance of a defensive line and not understand the importance of an offensive line. And I keep coming back to the name. And if you've been watching Larry and I, we've been talking about this guy an awful lot, but the center is Zach Frazier from West Virginia.
Oh, yeah, I like that guy. And
it's just someone who I think would make the entire offense better. And you got to start really thinking about protecting Purdy being job one, because you're going to turn around and hand him, a $45 to $60 million contract over the next handful of seasons if you're going forward with him, which I truly believe they are. So protecting that guy is going to be job one, and I think you start making this offensive line better right in the middle.
Yeah, and the thing is, why they even feel so much sold on Brendo? That's the thing I'm more concerned about. I mean, don't get me wrong. Brendo is I can say he's adequate. Like, he's all right. But he's not the kind of guy that's going to be your starter for long.
If the argument was the offensive line was going to hold the team back, they were in the Super Bowl with that offensive line. And I know you can point to one play at the very end, the last offensive play that the 49ers ran in the Super Bowl, and say that was a catastrophic offensive line failure right there. And Spencer Burford missed the block, or, what happened right there when you let Chris Jones just come unchecked to Purdy. Left everybody with a bad taste in their mouth.
Yeah.
But I thought McKivitz was a little bit better than anyone wanted to say he was this year. And that offensive line, again, it was challenged at times, but it wasn't bad. I just think getting better right in the center makes everything easier for everyone around you. It really does. And Zach Frazier is a guy that I like an awful, awful lot. Darius Robinson, the edge from Missouri, has seen his name, I think, attached to the 49ers maybe more than any other player in the last 24, 48 hours.
He can play the inside or outside, so that's what makes him so viable, is his versatility, which I think
Lombardi likes him. I mean, here's the thing. The guy's he's a lean 290 pounds, which means like he hasn't even started putting on that NFL big boy weight yet. He just comes in like this. So yeah, you want to feed him and put him on the inside. You want him to stay lean and mean, play on the outside. It seems like that could happen. He was a captain, 8.5 sacks, 14 tackles for a loss in the SEC. I mean, he's a player. Johnny Newton, the D tackle from Illinois, is another real interesting prospect that we've seen his name more this week than all the weeks leading up to it. I think that he's an interesting player, but at the same time, you just traded for Malik Collins. You just signed Jordan Elliott. I'm a believer that you can never have too many defensive linemen. I get it, but I just think that you need to, maybe in this draft, look somewhere other than just D-line or edge rusher and help this offensive line get a little bit better. Because just a little bit better of this offensive line, it feels like the whole offense is just going to improve dramatically. And it's going to need to, especially if you're waving goodbye to a guy like Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah, at least try to invest protecting your quarterback. And even if you're more of a run first team, at least try to make the line better. So I would think the best solution is if Graham Barton is available. That would be the guy I would want to get because he's an entire versatile player. He can play center, guard, and tackle. So that fixes all the like his versatility is really good.
A little bit. And look, versatility is not a negative thing on the offensive line, but I think the 49ers need a master of a trade, not a jack of all trades. And I like Graham Barton. It feels like if you're talking about him, you're moving up from 31. And if you're moving up from 31, I honestly hope you're moving up for something a little bit better than Graham Barton, a legit tackle, a legit center, a guy who's played there at his position, not a card to shuffle in the deck, but someone who comes in defined. Like the single biggest move I would like to see from position to position along this offensive line is we're drafting you to be our left tackle of the future, but tonight we have Trent playing right there, so you're the right tackle right now. Like that's as big of a swing as I think I'd like to see positionally.
Oh yeah, that's what we're looking for. But McKivitz is just going to hold the job for now. So it's like I'm kind of curious if we're going to move up. Are we going to get a starting legitimate tackle? Which I think I think like there's only like at least a few guys in the top of the first round that you can get as your starters, but the rest of them, from my understanding, Mims is still like a work in progress, but he'd probably be somebody you'll probably want to take a risk on, or Tyler Guyton's another guy, but you might have to wait for his development, which I don't think we have any patience for that. But
Well,
the guy from Washington is I'm hearing a lot about.
Yeah, Fatanu,
yeah, that's the one guy I probably would want to move up for because of his versatility and stuff.
And he's nasty. He is mean. Like that guy's got dog in him. You can see it there. Yeah, he's rising up draft boards. I think Daniel Jeremiah today just sort of illuminated how tough it's going to be to get that dream tackle that you'd want from 31 with the Niners, because the thing that he put out this morning, he's like, yeah, the last 5 phone calls I've took basically were all about how there's going to be a big tackle run early Thursday night. So what are you willing to give up to get into the top 12 to 17 in this draft if you really want to walk away with that offensive line name that is a tackle? To me, I think Zach Frazier is there at 31, and there'll be people who might even say that's a reach at 31. I think it's the player that fits the Niners. So I hope that they do it. And yeah, if Amarius Mims is too much of a project who drops to 31, I would take a little bit like, was I really walking down the street and I found a lottery ticket? Do I have?
Is that what it seems like?
Yeah, I mean, do I have the Powerball on this guy alone right here? I think that would be pretty interesting. Mims is sort of my offensive crush in this draft.
Mims is just a guy that just hasn't played a lot of games, but has that potential to be really, really good. Like I think he's only played about, I think he had 7 career starts, but had limited playing time. So that's what people are kind of questioning about.
It's like a guy like that, you figured there'd be enough NIL money to get him back in Georgia 1 more year, and have him really, play himself into being top 10 in the draft. And maybe that's the red flag too. And this is something that Larry and I, again, we're talking about today about him. Maybe he's the James Wiseman of this draft, where it's just like, son, your body means you should have an NFL career. Just look at you. God kissed you on the forehead and gave you this specimen of a body, but do you really want it? Are you big enough to play football, or are you a football player? And there's a difference there. There really is. There's a difference there. So I think that's another thing that brings the 49ers back to Darius Robinson and falling back into their habits of just drafting the best defensive lineman on the board, because that guy has the body that has been kissed by God, and he's a football player. Like, he's a little bit of a dog. So maybe he's the guy. What I just know is that all the time that we spend talking about this, is about to be proven how, well, watch it be a player we haven't discussed at all, right? I mean,
It's going to be one of those dudes.
Watch it be somebody that we've spent, this much time talking about. Well, everybody else got this much more time. And that's the game of chess that we're about to see. It's hard to predict your move when there are 30 moves in front of you. And one of the moves that is available to you is packaging a desirable wide receiver in a possible trade that could now turn your simple pawn chess piece into a queen. And now you're moving anywhere up and down this board. So there's no player that you could attach to that first pick that would really surprise me, I don't think. But I also wouldn't be surprised at all if the 49ers just said, we're taking 31, we're moving back. One of these wide receivers fell. Somebody wants to pick up a fifth-year option on a receiver or a quarterback that another team is saying, hey, we want that, and all of a sudden the 49ers are controlling the back of the first round instead of, they weren't allowed to control the top of the first round, but you have those last couple picks. That's where other teams get desperate to attach a fifth-year option to that first rounder. So if the Niners traded back, it would be like officially as unexciting as a draft can get for a lot of fans who just want to see the name and what jersey they need to go out and buy. Let's be totally honest. I don't think a lot of people are going to get that excited about a center from West Virginia, but I just like the player an awful lot. Offensive linemen are not the sexiest draft day picks. You want somebody who touches the ball, and that's a jersey that you want. And this guy's going to go get the quarterback. And I think the 49ers need to be a little bit more practical here by either taking the center, maybe even moving back.
Yeah, move it back. But I actually had some of the mock drafts where there was just too many offers. Like you said, there can be a quarterback that can just be available. Like, let's say there's a team that sees Michael Penix as a starting caliber guy, right? And they might see him as a capable guy. But I know this may be a long shot, but let's say the Raiders want to make that move and they give us so much offer. Would we even consider that trade? Let's say they go get a player they want to go get, but they still move up to the end of the first round to make a trade with the Niners to get Michael Penix. And they offer us insane amount of picks.
What's the so what are they? I mean, that's the thing.
We get their second round pick. We get maybe a third round out of the deal, and then maybe next year's we get a first round out of it.
It always sounds like a good idea for me to put a future round, a future first rounder in your back pocket in case you might need it one day. That's not bad. I mean, the Raiders are always galactically capable of turning that future first rounder into a top 10 pick because that's just kind of who they are. But yeah, I mean, if you are John Lynch, you should be ready to do anything. And you should have a plan, a very definitive plan, and yet not be so stubborn to that plan that you wouldn't pivot off of it should the right deal come across your desk in an 11th hour phone call. And that's the beauty of all this. That's where the drama is in all this. I was just at the Sphere, right? I was just watching Fish in Las Vegas play this mind-bending concert in a venue that we've never seen anything look like that before. That was incredible. One of their lyrics is the trick is to surrender to the flow. And that's the thing about the draft. The draft is like this living, breathing organism that nobody can really control. The very few good GMs can, get on there and ride it for a little bit, but you can't really control it. So you got to have your board. You got to have conviction in your board. And then you have to be unstubborn enough to sort of play what happens as it's happening. And then there's the wild card chip of what could happen with Brandon Ayuk. So there's so many moving pieces that anyone trying to talk about how any of these pieces could land with like authority and certainty, like it drives me nuts. It drives me nuts. You sound like a person who is sitting at a roulette wheel and calling out just random where you think that ball's going to land. And, maybe you got one right about an hour ago, but that doesn't mean you're going to get the next anything right. Trying to predict what's about to happen in this it's impossible. There are a lot of informed decisions, but it takes one team moving up or down to throw everything out of kilter. And now you got to go with plan B, and plan B says go directly to plan C. And that's why this is now a 3-day long television event, because this shit sells like hotcakes.
Yeah, it does. But once we get towards that plan, see how that works out. I think this is going to be a sure thing with us getting Robinson. I just think so. It just has it written all over the wall. Maybe they might just pull something surprisingly and maybe get an offensive lineman, like move up and get one. That might be the shocker. The Brennan Ayuk trade, that's still a possibility. That could be the surprise, but we'll have to find out how that plays out. So let's just name one draft sleeper that you really want the Niners to get, and then we can end on a high note.
A draft sleeper and a high note all together. I really like Malachi Corley, who is a Western Kentucky wide receiver. So here's the thing. Let's say that they do trade Brandon Ayuk, and now they're moving up. I don't think that they're taking a wide receiver in the first round. I don't. I think that they're going to be looking for line of scrimmage somehow, some way. Malachi Corley is a guy. Caden Wallace is another come back in the draft for the tackle that you didn't get early. He's out of Penn State. Saw plenty of guard reps during practice, apparently. The 49ers have been at a lot of his practices, have seen a lot of him too. I think Caden Wallace is a name. And I like the wide receiver from Michigan, Roman Wilson. That's a name I think is just another one of those guys would show up and play the style of wide receiver that Kyle Shanahan wants. He can bust off a better route than he is a burner, and he's incredibly physical. I mean, if you're playing an awful lot of snaps for Jim Harbaugh as a wide receiver, it's because you're blocking downfield in that running game.
He does fit the mold.
Yeah, Roman Wilson is a guy I'll just throw out there too for you. And again, I don't know how much sleepers they are. I'm not ready to give you a 7th round gotta have them. Because
I'll give you a sleeper that I've actually had a chance to meet up with. This kid from Washington. I think he's the better receiver out of the other guys, but I'm talking about Jalen McMillan. This guy is a legit blocker. This guy runs good routes, and he does the dirty work, man. So he would fit just well.
Okay. And you met him? Nice guy.
Yeah, I met the guy. And
character, work ethic, looking like you're ready to be an adult and make good choices in your life and shit that doesn't get you in trouble. All of that goes into the mix, right? I mean, there are a whole bunch of really talented, just problem children you don't want anything to do with. So, the thing that we don't have access to is we're talking about how all these physical traits are the reason why player X needs to be the pick. Well, these teams sit down with those players. And there probably isn't a moment in an entire draft evaluation where you bust out that red pen and just start drawing lines through dudes' names. Not interested. After you meet somebody and, you don't like them. You don't like their work ethic. You don't like how they talked the game. Didn't sound like they were students of the game. And I think that Kyle Shanahan is one of those real head coaches that is looking for future students of the game, not just raw talent, because he's a very particular coach. So I think it takes a very particular player for the Niners to be particularly interested in.
Yeah, it's going to be somebody. But since there was another sleeper that you were talking about, like since we were saying, well, there is this one kid from South Dakota State. This would be the guy who could play guard or center, Mason McCormick. That's one of my sleepers. I think he's a sleeper because he played in a smaller college.
Well, that's sort of, where you find that brand of player. Didn't hear from, was unheralded because he plays for a school that's on a part of the map that you don't even think about when you're talking about college football. And that's where you find your sleepers. I know that that's a player that Kruger really, really likes. He's been talking about him, sliding him in. There's a couple South Dakota jackrabbits that Larry keeps on talking about. I can't.
Garrett Greenfield, I like.
Yeah. So, let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. All I know is that I'm ready for this bad boy to start tomorrow. And let's go. It seems like the first round never moves fast enough. And then when you finally get the flow of it down and it feels like you're in rhythm, it's over. I wish that they would do the first 2 rounds on Thursday night, rounds 3 and 4 on night 2, and then come back in night 3 and finish the rest of it up. Because
that would seem pretty fair, because at least you get something out of it. And instead of that, you can just get like the 5th to the 6th mean, to the 7th round, which is
they
3.
want these networks want that, and with the first pick in the NFL draft, they want that in that 8 p.m. prime time window on
They
the
want
East
that
Coast.
slot so bad.
That's what they
That's
want.
what it seems like. But I like your approach. Like in the first round, we can just go with that and then get what you said 2, right? First and second round.
The first day of the draft would be the first 2 rounds.
Yeah.
But then again, but then you're trying to say like a second rounder is important as the first round. You want that delineation. You want the importance of the first round to stick out like a sore thumb. Like I get why the networks do it that way. I'm just talking about how.
That makes perfect sense.
Me at night.
No, that makes perfect sense. The first 2 rounds for Thursday would be nice because you want to, because in the beginning you're kind of like trying to get interested in it, and then it just quickly ends.
Right. And you're like, come on. We all know that the Chicago Bears are not going to need to take 10 minutes on the clock, right?
Yeah, come on.
But they'll use it. They'll use 8.5 freaking minutes of it because they've been told to by the league, because this is a television show more than anything now.
Yeah,
it's a television show. So buckle up. Have a good time watching the TV show. I'm sure, you'll be going live to react to the pick. I know that we'll be doing an awful lot of stuff. We're going to be coming live to you on Friday from the Dubliner, Larry Kruger and I on West Portal. So anyone in San Francisco that happens to be watching your channel right now, CG, who wants to come on out and hang out with us at the Dubliner, hell, if you want to drive on up, we'll see you there. But it's I'm so sick and tired of talking about the fucking draft. Let's go. Let's
go. But hey, but thank you, Damon Bruce, for your time. I know you got some stuff to do, but for everybody else, thank you guys for tuning in. And hey, Damon Bruce is the man. Many more to come, man.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. You take care.
Yeah, you too, man.